I'd have to blow the dust off a little bit.
Would you all please rise and join with me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning to everybody. Happy New Year. We have a special meeting this morning to act on two items: the recommendation from the Airport Zoning Commission and a resolution for reimbursement for prisoner medical expenses, which you have all received. Augie, will you do the roll call?
Yes, I will. Lorenzen.
Here.
Ludington. Here. Patrick.
Here.
Bruner.
Here.
Chittick.
Here.
Farnham.
Here.
And Voigt.
Here. Okay, we do have a quorum. In fact, everybody's here. Now comes the time for public comment. I'd like to remind those who have public comment that we are limiting public comment to 5 minutes. So, any public comment, please?
Maybe the only one. I don't know.
We'll see.
Let's see. Everybody made it through the New Year's holiday festivities. Y'all look like you made it in pretty good shape, too. Good morning. My name is Robert Bogue, citizen of the United States of America, veteran of the United States Army, and I'm an Edgar County resident. I recognize that we're having a special meeting today. And I understand that zoning for the airport, the zoning we look at today is zoning just for projects funding. Not for the funding of the airport. That's something the Edgar County residents are doing. This is just for project funding. Today, it is my understanding, there are about 6 residents, more or less, that live in Edgar County, that pay taxes in Edgar County, and that use the airport, and that hangar the airplanes at that airport. At the airport, there are no businesses employing people year-round as there have been in the past. There hasn't been a business in operation out there employing Edgar County residents for the past 3.5 years that I know of. And I understand, and you should understand, you're zoning the north half, essentially the north half, just to fund an airport project. For the project, $1.3 million that you wish to receive for this project, you are committing $2.8 million, of Edgar County tax dollars, that is. You understand that when you take this money from the federal government, they have grant assurances that require you to keep, maintain, hold, protect their investment for the next 20 years. This works out to what we spend this year, $140,000 times 20 years. That's the $2.8 million I'm talking about. In addition to this, for the next 20 years, our friends, relatives, children, grandchildren will be paying on the $500,000 debt that we have in our county, purchasing a courthouse roof that we desperately will need in another year or so, according to Andy Patrick, right? We hope we have a new jail before the state closes ours and forces those costs to go up. And our sheriff, who has been over his budget for the past 2 years, the last one is $70,000. All these things need to be funded. It's going to be a tough road, probably increase taxes unless there's a better way. I want to talk about a better way. I think what we should do is sell the airport just as we did the mass transit. We should use that money to pay off our debt, pay cash for the courthouse roof, finance a new jail, and better fund the protection of our county by providing our sheriff with more funds. This probably won't result in a tax increase. How much more time have I got, Mr. Chairman?
About 2 minutes.
I'll try not to use all of it up. To do this, you'll need to table the zoning effort or vote it down. Since once zoning is established, the grant conditions for both the past grants and the future grants become irrevocable. And selling the airport might require reimbursement to the FAA for those projects. And it's basically where we're at, is do you want to further commit the residents, the taxpayers that voted you in office, to a 20-year odyssey of spending $140,000 a year or would the county's interest be better served in selling the airport as we did the mass transit, taking that money, paying our debt off, having some money in our treasury, and be better prepared for the future? I did say something to Carl earlier. I think this is a separate issue. We're talking about pigs. Carl's has pigs now. I said you can put spots on a pig, call it what you want, call it a leopard if you will, but it's still a pig. So, don't know where that fits in here. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Hearing none, we'll proceed on the agenda item. Action on recommendation from Airport Zoning Commission. First of all, I'd like to recognize Rob Howery, who is here in the audience, and also Jake Barrett for their service to that commission. Mr. Lorenzen, do you want to take the lead on this at this point?
I feel like we've kind of said all that can or needs to be said on this issue. I certainly, wanted to answer any questions that certainly our new board members haven't been steeped in this quite as much as the rest of us have. But is there anything in particular that you have questions about that I can answer before we make a vote?
I do. Sorry, go ahead.
I've looked into it myself. You're gonna spend several thousand to get money. This is earmarked specifically for that purpose. Use it, you lose it. If you want to control the airport, you do that, that's up to us.
And, sure.
One question I had, so the grant application is already in place and it's just, and been approved by the board and everything
Twice.
twice? And as far as I read on the zoning report, that we're, in a nutshell, all we're saying is that we agree to follow FAA regulations. I mean, is there more to it that I'm missing?
Even that is that's almost more extreme than what we're doing, because the FAA regulations exist with or without the county board.
Sure.
Those hazard zoning, this is just basically saying, hey, we recognize that they exist and we will continue to protect the airport because it's our airport and has been for a long time. In addition, safety of flight will not be compromised because the same FAA regulations that have existed for 40 years are still in place.
Gray's a farmer out by the airport, and he was asked me last week, a couple weeks ago, about the zoning and the end of the front runway, if he has an option of putting up something, it's 7 miles and not the limit when you zone at the end of the runway.
7-mile piece is only for, and it's actually 6.8 miles, but that's only for, if you build a 200-foot structure, 200 foot and above, and you're within 7 miles of the airport, you have to report it. And they'll tell you, yes, you can, or no, you can't.
What was your, may I
I
ask
know.
you?
I'm at 80 foot, at the end of on my property with the 100 to 1 glide path, 80 foot is my limit, because I'm 7,900 foot from the end of the runway.
Right.
So 80 foot is my limit, which Green Lakes would be taller than that, so.
Right.
So if you want to put up green bins, then you would have to get permission from the FFA, right? Put up
Grand
green
lane,
bins.
yeah. So a grand bend's not gonna be,
Right.
probably not gonna be 80 feet. And anything like that, there may be, if you wanna get down to the nitty details, you may be able to go off a few degrees, call the state and say, here's exactly where it is, and you may have a little more room, but
So then
that's so you
right.
understand the slope, so that's where we're
That
at.
kind of answer your question you was asking me.
But,
But there again, you're gonna have to deal with it regardless of whether this passes or not.
so if I want to put up Green Lake, currently I would call Springfield for that permission. Once you guys pass zoning, I would call who for that
Still
permission?
Springfield.
Still calls for.
And they're okay with them enforcing somebody else's zoning law?
That's actually in the document that we're talking about, that designates the state to handle any kind of zoning
Determinations.
issue, right, so.
Okay, so you're just setting up the rules that say that, yeah, you have to call state.
Just to help people, it also helps people of Edgar County to say, do I need to talk to somebody? They can reference this document, some of the pertinent details. I mean, it's always been and always will be the state, and through the
So
state.
enforcement is not a county thing, nor will it ever be.
Right. Now, if somebody put something up and they had talked to the FAA and it was impinging on the airport, the county might call the state and say, hey, you need to look at this because this is a problem, but.
But currently, I mean, I guess you don't have to get a permit because the county doesn't have the zoning, but still, they control, you know. Technically, in the past, before we passed, if this is passed.
Right, the rules were there.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And they, yes.
I guess it just makes more sense to me that you guys would enforce the perimeter and let state take care of what they're being currently taken care of.
The hazard zone.
Yeah, the hazard zone.
Right. And the hazard zone does include, like, literally up into the borders of the actual airport. We talked about earthen berms at the last meeting. Things like that would still fall under the administrative code of the state of Illinois that handles the hazard zoning around airports. So, you know, we don't want, even from the start, you know, as little enforcement or any kind of, we don't want to put anything else in place that requires more man hours or time.
More stringent.
And we don't want to put any more restrictions on than what already exists, so.
With that being said, would you be better off just to zone the airport proper? As
We
opposed
can't zone anything, because we'd have to zone the county, and that may happen, you know, down the line. But this is, we're not, the county here, and what we're doing is not zoning anything. We're recognizing the airport for what it is, and the hazard zoning already exists, and we're putting in that document.
Do you have a motion, Mr. Lorenzen?
I move that we vote on this, the recommendation from the Airport Zoning Commission.
Do I have a second? Andy, Patrick seconds. Any further discussion amongst the board members? Mr. Clerk, would you call the roll?
Lorenzen,
Yes.
Luddington,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Bruner,
Yes.
Chittick,
Abstain.
and Farnham.
Yes.
It does carry. Thank you, gentlemen. Next is the resolution for reimbursement for prisoner medical expenses. A while back, we had a meeting out at the hospital, Jeff and I did, with the financial people. And then we came back and had a meeting with the state's attorney. We are currently, based on state law, collecting X amount of dollars from each prisoner and it's a prisoner medical fee. And we've been collecting that for a couple of years. And the hospital has incurred certain expenses that are eligible to be reimbursed for prisoners. The state's attorney explained to us in order to access that fund for medical providers, we had to have a resolution stating what parameters there were for reimbursement, which is what you folks have had in front of you for a couple of days. Did I say that? Did I forget anything, Jeffrey?
I think I.
So in order to reimburse the hospital going forward, we have to have this resolution passed, and only the funds in, I think it's 829 or what, I've got it right here.
You talking about the statute number?
No.
I'm sorry. Oh, the fund.
847, you'll see it when you get your report from Don every month. You'll see 847, and it keeps growing and growing, and that's only can be used for medical reimbursement for prisoner care. So, are there any questions on that particular issue? Yes, sir.
If the prisoner comes in and he's on, has his own insurance, do we still pay, or do they charge his insurance company?
Yes, they would charge his own insurance company. There are certain times when Medicare will pay.
Right.
There are certain times when other things happen. And that's for Jeff and Marty at the hospital to work out. I've talked to Jeff, he's gonna talk, I guess you talked to Marty last week, you're gonna be talking to him once this passes so that we can get an open line, so that we can take care of our obligations based on the prisoner and based on what we're being funded as far as the courts.
We
Okay?
still have accumulated expenses that we haven't paid.
Well, that is interesting, but we really cannot go back, but we can only go forward. Depends on what they bill, and that's up for the sheriff and Marty to to ascertain what's eligible based upon how we've written this, okay?
One more question.
Yes, John?
I honestly can't imagine it would ever be an issue, but if you're collecting a fee from each inmate on each conviction, is there ever a chance or a system in place that the fund would get up to a certain point where we would never need that kind of money to either change it or, I mean, is there any end game?
I'm not
And the
sure that
resolution.
answer, John.
I mean, I can't see it ever happening in all seriousness.
I can't see it ever getting replaced. I mean, they're just, they make up illnesses.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Well, and is that fund, is that used for non-convicted inmates? as well?
Absolutely. Once they come in and they're
Once
under
they
our
come in that
custody,
door,
they're ours.
But we use that, right, but we use that fund for that, so those that are convicted pay a $10 entrance fee,
Right.
but anyone who just was brought into the jail doesn't pay that, so that fund
well,
covers
like I
a
say, it
lot
all
of
depends on the individual, whether they've got their own insurance or
You can pay the
Medicaid.
$10 fee,
Right,
Only upon conviction.
yeah,
right, so
So
we
and
got,
it's ordered by the judge.
The other prisoners are subsidizing all health care.
that's what I'm
Four,
getting at.
okay.
So I feel like there's no way, I mean, what's that fund at right now, ballpark?
22, 24
I'd have to,
100? 1,000?
thousands.
thousand.
Yeah, sounds pretty close, yeah.
I mean, it's less than 25,000, I believe,
But we
unless
haven't
it's
paid
gone.
money out of that for some time. Yeah, right.
Yes, some things have been paid out.
Because part of it is because we didn't have this agreement in place.
Right. Okay, I'd entertain a motion for this,
I'll
please.
make that motion.
Carl Farnham moves,
Second.
Dan Bruner seconds. Any further questions? I assume you're ready to vote, so Mr. Clerk, would you call the roll?
Lorenzen,
Yes.
Luddington,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Bruner,
Yes.
Chittick,
Yes.
Farnum.
Yes.
Okay, there being nothing further on the agenda that we can legally act on, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Mr. Lorenzen moves. Mr. Patrick seconds. All those in favor of adjourning the meeting signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. We are adjourned.